You're listening to the Night Demon Network. Go to nightdemon.net/subscriber to unlock more exclusive content.
Hello and welcome to the Night Demon Heavy Metal Podcast. I'm your host, Nesbit. It's been 10 years since Night Demon played its first show outside of North America. 2014, they played their first European tour. And since then, they've played all over North America. They played South America, shows in Asia. Finally, in May of 2024, Night Demon, along with Cirith Ungol, hits the land down under. This is Night Demon Australia.
Lost in the dark between heaven and hell. Inverted crosses on the wall. A fallen angel comes up to you. Says, follow me, your master calls. His name is Satan. He rules the underworld. Satan, he's coming for your soul.
It was amazing to finally be able to go to this magical land that has always been on my mind as far as a bucket list kind of place. I knew that we would get there eventually. Just didn't know when. I mean, we got close in 2023 when we went to Japan. Because I've always heard, with other bands, friends of ours that have been down that area, that if you go to Japan, you go to Australia, because it's like, it's a lot closer. And once you're down there, it's just a hop, skip, and a jump to hit Australia. It's a very, very important, has a very important role in the history of rock and metal, mainly because of AC/DC. Just a wee little band. Biggest rock band of probably all time. I mean, the guys that laid down the heaviest just backbeat probably of all time when it comes to rock. I say rock, not so much metal. There's never really any speed picking or anything going on with them, but just good cordage and the backbeat. Huge, huge part.
I guess when you're talking about hard rock, there's really only one name, and that's AC/DC. Arguably in the top 5 hard rock bands of all time and most influential. So AC/DC kind of dominates the conversation when it comes to Australian rock and metal by far. I mean, the gap is just so big between them and what would come next. I'm not a huge AC/DC fan, although they were one of my gateway bands when I was a kid that got me into, heavily into rock and metal. Specifically, the album AC/DC Live. That, obviously, Back in Black and The Razor's Edge. So it's kind of weird that I discovered I was into AC/DC before I heard the Bon Scott stuff. And then I heard that stuff and said, oh my God, these guys are really incredible. But I think Brian would probably be able to weigh in much better on the AC/DC conversation because I know he's a big fan.
So if you want to talk about Australia and the history of hard rock or metal there, the obvious answer would be AC/DC. I mean, where would the world of heavy metal today be without them? So obviously Australia had a major influence on the world in hard rock and heavy metal just from AC/DC alone. That's not to say there's not other bands, though, that have come from the Australian scene. There's Rose Tattoo, Heaven, and Hobbs Angel of Death, and you have even Destroyer 666. More recently, there was a band that came out of Australia called Sabir. So there's a pretty thriving scene in Australia, I think.
Looking at AC/DC, Midnight Oil, In Excess, Crowded House. And that's pretty much where it ends with me. Oh yeah, Silverchair. I remember them. 90s. You got Wolf Mother, came out in the 2000s, early 2000s. I thought their stuff was pretty cool when they first came out. They seem to kind of go off to the wayside, though. I don't know what happened with that band, but that was some cool stuff. And, of course, the Bee Gees. Wow. Oh, yeah, they were Australian. Wow. Pretty wild. Oh, I would say, Rose Tattoo. Mainly because of Guns N' Roses covering their song, Nice Boys. That was on the GNR Lies EP, which was actually a studio recording that was made to sound like it was live. Something from those recordings, I guess, were done before Appetite for Destruction. So, yeah, and that was a song that always hit hard for me when I would listen to that, and I didn't really know of Rose Tattoo until hearing it through Guns N' Roses. So there you go. So very, very important in the history of rock and metal.
I have never been to Australia in the past, which is really strange because my mother was actually born in Australia. She was born in Melbourne, moved to the United States when she was very young, though. And my sister, when she graduated from college, actually moved to New Zealand and then to Australia, I think for a couple of years. And I did never visit her there. My family made some trips there, though. And my mom had a funny thing coming back to the States. I guess something was up with her passport, and I think the paperwork didn't quite go through when she came to the States when she was like 1 year old. And so for the first 50 years of her life, I guess, she wasn't really a full-on U.S. citizen and didn't know that. So there was some big error there, and luckily they fixed it. And through that, she ended up, I think, getting an Australian passport. I think she got dual citizenship, which is really strange. But I know she hasn't been back there since. So
I'd never been to Australia before, but it was pretty high up on my list at this point of places that I wanted to play at. So I'm glad that this opportunity came about.
Never been in Australia before, so it was a first and, again, a bucket list thing for me.
So why has Night Demon never been to Australia before? The simplest answer to that is probably logistics. It's pretty goddamn far, man. Like, that's not a short trip by any means for a band from the United States. So I'd say that's probably why most bands don't make it out there. It's probably one of the last places that they make it to once they start touring. And then there's the subject of visas and even transportation within Australia once you're there, and hotels and such. There's a lot of money that comes into bringing a group of people to perform in Australia. So, to my knowledge, people have reached out to Night Demon before about coming to Australia, but nobody had ever gone through with it.
As far as why we hadn't been there before, it's just from what we experienced going there now, 10 plus years later after the band started, There's a lot of money involved, and just logistically, I guess we never really connected with the right promoter or agency or whatever it may be to get down there. So it just never happened. Jarvis will probably elaborate more on that.
Well, the reason why Night Demon had never managed to go to Australia in the past, I think, was, we were just kind of waiting. I don't want to say waiting, but we were kind of waiting for an Australian promoter to bring us over. And it's not that we didn't try or we didn't hit people up or anything, but it's really just, they really have to pick and choose. It's on the other side of the world, and it's a big expense to go there, and their scene is not as strong as other countries for heavy metal. There was a festival called the Shockwave Fest that was really big, that was happening out there. And I think, I don't know, maybe like 7-8 years ago, I think Megadeth was supposed to headline one of the days, and they canceled, and the whole thing got screwed up. And I think the festival went bust, it went bankrupt, and they haven't done one since. And what I've personally noticed is that ever since that happened, I've heard about less and less U.S. bands going over to Australia. So luckily that was about to change for us. But, we had talked to many people in the past, and a lot of people, the same thing with Japan. We've had a lot of people interested and have talked about it. I would say with Japan, probably about 10 different people in our career before we went over there. Australia, more like 3 or 4 promoters. But, kind of working out the details, and then you don't hear from them again, or people just talking and saying, hey, I know somebody who wants to bring you over, then you don't hear anything. But yeah, that was all about to change, and it was only a matter of time.
So Anthony from Your Mate Bookings has been the first one who actually brought Night Demon to Australia, and we're very thankful to him for that.
So how the Australian shows came about was I was dealing with a guy named Anthony Blaney from a booking agency and touring company out there called Your Mate Bookings.
So everyone, my name's Anthony. I run Your Mate Bookings. I've been running the Your Mate Bookings for about, probably 7 years now, actually. 7 years ago, I started Your Mate just as sort of like a hobby / business, just to sort of help out Aussie bands and eventually bring over international bands to help those Aussie bands. And that just grew into this touring company that, we do about, a minimum of between 8 to 12 tours a year now. Started out as sort of like focusing on stoner rock and psych rock, and helping bands in Australia around those genres. And then it just evolved into this bringing internationals over to then get the bands that I was working with to support these internationals, these sort of DIY international bands. And then eventually it just sort of evolved into I tour, Your Mate Bookings tours everything that I respect and everything that I'm into music-wise. As far as, into jazz and then into sort of singer-songwriter, avant-garde stuff and death metal, black metal, true heavy metal, everything in between. Only thing I haven't touched so far is rap, which isn't saying I wouldn't do one day. But yeah, I've been touring bands, been in bands for, nearly 20 years now. But the touring started, probably say about 12 years ago when I was involved with the Paul Di'Anno tour and the Ripper tour, and then it eventuated to my first ever tour that I did on my own, band from the UK called Conan. And then eventually I got out of it for a bit and got back into it, which is when I formed Your Mate Bookings 7 years ago. and it's been going stronger and stronger by the year. We seem to just be growing more and more. I don't know where it's going from here. We've talked about Your Mate Recordings. We've done a record which is basically sold out around the world. Records for Alan Johannes. If you might recognise him, he was involved with Chris Cornell, them Crooked Vultures, Queens of the Stone Age, etc., etc. But that was when I delved deep into, the world of the new wave of traditional true heavy metal. And here I was seeing Night Demon popping up all the time on YouTube, and obviously Spotify and all that. Anyway, me and Jarvis stayed in contact. We kept talking, and all of a sudden, they were coming over to Japan, and somehow we hooked up again, and we were going to do the tour. And that was 2023, I think. But it wasn't going to be viable. It wasn't going to work. So we stayed in touch. We said, we're going to do this one day. It just has to be the right time.
I'd been hooked up with him through a friend of mine, Matt Bacon. And we had just been talking back and forth for probably a couple years. And he was interested in bringing Night Demon over and bringing Midnight over. So it made sense to put Midnight over there first because they had a record coming out around the time that they went, which was only a few months before us. So we just made it happen. I mean, it was as simple as that. We booked their tour and the Night Demon tour pretty much at the same time. Their tour was happening in February, I believe, or late February into March, and ours was in late May into June. But before the Midnight thing even happened, I want to say it was at the early part of 2024. And Anthony just kind of said, "Hey, man, I noticed you play in Cirith Ungol, and you manage them too." I said, "Yeah." And he said, "Man, like, what would it take to get those guys out here? People would be really stoked." And I said, "Well, I mean, this is their kind of farewell year, retiring from playing live." So I just kind of thought about it, and I just said, I mean, at this time, both myself and Armand are playing in Cirith Ungol. So I just kind of brought it up and said, "Look, I mean, if you want to somehow add them to the Night Demon shows, I think we could probably just make it happen this year. I mean, this is really your only shot." And, I didn't know if that was going to cause any kind of friction or just like logistical gymnastics, because we had already been confirmed and booked in these clubs. And I didn't know if that, obviously that changes the budget. There's more flights, more hotels. You have to pay two bands. But he was really stoked on the idea right away.
And he's like, "Yeah, well, we're the techs for the band and we're also in the band. So it sort of makes sense." Anyway, so here I was, doing my, second or third sort of double headliner, or planning my second, third double headliner tour in Australia, with Cirith Ungol and Night Demon coming together. And I'd been listening to Cirith Ungol for a long time, and I just couldn't believe that this was finally going to happen after 40-something years, however long they've been together. Yeah, like nearly 50 years, whatever. Anyway, so then Jarvis and I, we put together some projections, some numbers, and we basically agreed, let's do this. Let's make this happen however the hell we can do it.
Within a week, we had pretty much confirmed this thing.
So yeah, initially these were supposed to be just Night Demon shows. But when the Cirith Ungol final tour idea came about, Jarvis brought it up to our promoter, booking sort of agent guy over there, Anthony Blaney, who turned out to be a fucking rad dude, and he was over the moon of the idea of bringing the Cirith Ungol guys there with us as well.
It's more double duty for Armand and I. And, I mean, we had Laura with us doing lights and helping with the merch and stuff, but we had no other crew. So we kind of had to do the whole thing, me, Brian, and Armand, for both bands. and Armand and myself obviously performing with both bands. So, but look, it's a chance to go to Australia. So, I mean, how amazing is that, right? I mean, we love playing with Cirith Ungol too. So like, this was a really good situation. And you know what? This is one of those things, a somewhat rare occurrence, but this is a thing where Night Demon actually gave Cirith Ungol a big opportunity, whereas, in the past, it had mostly been Cirith Ungol giving Night Demon big opportunities. So it was nice to repay the favor and bring them to a place that, none of us had ever been there. None of us, like, not as tourists or anything. So we were all very excited about it.
So, Cirith Ungol being a band that's been around for 50 years or so, as important to the world of heavy metal as they are, it's pretty safe to say that they definitely already had a following in Australia, as they do most places in the world that, even if they haven't been there, being as influential in the heavy metal world as they are and have been, you can assume that they're going to have a decent following just about anywhere they go. And as for Night Demon, being that we haven't been around as long, there hasn't been that 20, 30, 40-year wait for the fans of these places that we've never been to. So usually when Night Demon comes to a place that they've never been before, there's still some work to be done in building a fan base there. The band is not old enough to have that mystique or legend status that a 40-year-old band might. But I'm sure that there was a fair share of Night Demon fans in Australia already.
As far as how our following is over there, I mean, I didn't know what to expect. I know that we have been hit up by fans from down there before, on Facebook or Instagram or whatever, but not really sure what our reach was like. I would say I was pleasantly surprised. All the shows that we did, and of course, Cirith Ungol had a big draw there, being the legends that they are. But I think the combined bands really made an impact, and yeah, like I said, I was pleasantly surprised at the turnout and people that knew our stuff and that had been waiting for us to come down there for a long time. So that felt really good.
But part of building a band is touring. That is the number one way to build a band, I think, is to go on the road and present what you have to people live in person. And then when you go there, one person tells one friend, and then they tell a friend, and then that's how you grow a following in different areas. And when you've never been somewhere, that hasn't had an opportunity to happen. But now we've planted the seeds in Australia, and hopefully they will continue to grow.
The response seemed pretty good, off the bat, especially once we threw Cirith in the fold and added them to the shows. It became, more of a kind of legendary thing for the people down there because, well, they had never been there either. And, as far as we know now, they will be there again. So, yeah, people were pretty excited and pumped to receive this, get this package down there.
basically the logistics of it was, well, Greg from Cirith Ungol decided he was not going to come on this trip. I don't know if he was, I mean, it's a long trip for him. I know he generally doesn't like traveling for that long or touring. So it was one less person, which actually did help out with logistics. So it's me, Brian, Armand from Night Demon, and just Tim and Rob from Cirith Ungol, and Laura. So that's 6 people, plus Anthony, he drove us on the whole tour. So that's a total of 7. Not too bad for 2 bands, right? 2 bands and a crew. That's not bad at all. But it was pretty easy. We, Night Demon had just finished the Blind Guardian tour. So we got home a few days before we were supposed to leave from Australia. So we all just kind of left together from LAX.
The Australian tour came hot on the heels of the US tour that we did with Blind Guardian. So there was just like a week in between. And there was an awful lot of running around to do, of just last minute preparations. Because, we were going, on this leg, we were going to Australia and then China and then a European run. So there was a whole lot of logistical stuff to think of in there.
I think Armand was like in Vegas the night before at a show, so he flew in his own way to LAX, and Brian was flying in from Florida, and I believe he had to wait at the airport all day long. Like, he had an early morning flight, and we had a late night flight going out.
Logistically, getting to Australia is not simple, especially for me, with everybody else in the band, in both Cirith Ungol and Night Demon, coming from California. I was coming from Florida. Now, most of the time, we're going to Europe, and we fly over the Atlantic Ocean. So, being that I'm already pretty close, like right on the edge of the ocean there, the flights tend to be 5 hours shorter than everybody else for me. That was not the case for this one, because you have to fly over the Pacific Ocean to get to Australia. Then there was also the fact that to go to Australia from Florida was significantly more expensive than coming from California. So a flight was bought for me from California, meaning I had to fly to LA from Florida first and then meet up with the guys and then travel to Australia. So that was all well and good. I didn't particularly mind that so much. I'm used to flights and long layovers and long flights anyway. But I said, hey, I don't want to come out to California and just be like a waste of space there. So I said, just, book my flight to LA and just book it really as close as possible to when, so I would land, and then maybe 5 or 6 hours later, we would be taking off in our trip to Australia. That's not quite what happened. Instead, I was booked a flight that I landed 14 hours before our flight to Australia took off. And the LA airport is not exactly close to Ventura to where Night Demon HQ is. So I guess I just had to wait in LAX for 14 hours. So I sat there, and then maybe about, 11 hours later or so, the rest of the guys showed up, and then we checked in for our Australian flights and then moved on forward to Australia over the Pacific Ocean. So that was a pretty long one for me, but that's part of playing music on the road.
These trips always run in together. I think we've probably taken 100 flights this year already, but I believe this was the trip that happened. I'm almost positive. So forgive me for that. But yeah, we had a lot of baggage, a lot of gear, a lot of stuff to take. So we always manage. But I would say on a trip like this, with 6 people It's generally everybody has a backpack, like a personal bag that they bring on the plane, and then we have, a personal item, they call it, like a smaller bag. And then each of us have at least 2 check bags, sometimes 3. So we're bringing like an in-ear monitor rack. Me and Armand are each bringing 2 guitars. There's drum stuff, cymbals, pedals, snare, backdrops, sometimes merchandise, often merchandise. So we don't pack very light. The lightest we pack is for personal stuff, like fit all your clothing for a month in a backpack is kind of what we're used to, and then save the baggage for all the other stuff that needs to make the show work.
As far as with me, for the guitar stuff, I mean, the way my rig is now, I can pretty much go anywhere. As long as there's some sort of guitar cabinet, I can make anything work.
But it was really cool. It was just a good feeling when we left. Even though we had just come off a long tour, we were really excited because, the world's a big place. There's tons of places that we've never been personally. But as far as the touring market and where shows happen, where metal shows happen, we've kind of, at this point, we've been to most of the places that are standard and not extremely exotic. But it was exciting because this is a place that we've never been. So no matter how tired or burnt out we were, that immediately went away just knowing that we were going to Australia.
So yeah, we got everything done and we flew. We had a late flight on the 26th of May. It was almost midnight when we flew from LA over to Fiji. So that was cool. We had a short layover there. It was like an 11-hour flight. And then the layover, Fiji, definitely, even that layover made me want to go back there. It's all like hot and tropical, and Armo found in our airport bar that did these amazing rum cocktails. So
we had a short layover in Fiji, which was pretty cool. We had a couple hours there, and we were just in the airport. Unfortunately, we didn't get to go out of the airport and actually see the land, which that's something I'd really love to do. Maybe next time we go down there, I'll book a little extra time and go check out Fiji. But the one thing that I would say that we did enjoy, and I know Rob from Cirith Ungol enjoyed with me, was some Fijian rum, a coconut rum that was there at the bar. I ordered a couple of those with pineapple juice in it, and it was one of the best drinks I've ever had in my life. Just puts you right on the beach.
The cool thing is that on the way out, we had a layover in Fiji. So we had a pretty long flight over there. And I've always wanted to visit Fiji, always. Kava, which is a drink, a derivative from a root that naturally grows out there. It's from there. I've always wanted to go to Fiji and drink like real fresh kava. Unfortunately, we didn't leave the airport because our layover wasn't that long, but it was cool to go into that airport and just look out the window and see the topography of Fiji. It just looks amazing. It looks amazing. And, just kind of, get a vibe for the locals in the airport, and there was some kind of, local music happening in there, which was pretty nice, and some like traditional songs. And it just, again, it was I would love to have a day there. So on the next time we go out there, that's our plan. We're going to spend the day in Fiji.
this was the first time I've ever crossed the international date line, so it meant that we lost out on a whole day in a sense. So that was really weird. You get kind of discombobulated thinking, all right, it was this day, it's now like 2 days later. So that was kind of weird. And also it got dark really early because it's, not their winter time, but close to it, So just those things combined and being all jet lagged, it can throw you off a wee bit.
Usually when you go to Europe, you basically lose a day going there because of the time change. Well, going down to Australia, you lose like 2 days.
This is Robert Garvin, a drummer of Cirith Ungol, and today I'd like to talk to you a little bit about our trip to Australia As you can imagine, it's quite a ways from Los Angeles to Australia. So we had a short stopover in Fiji and ended up in Brisbane, which was our first port of call. The promoter there, Anthony Blaney, a genuinely amazing individual. I'd like to say any band that wants to go to Australia, he's the person you're looking for. His company, Yearmate Productions, they did everything to make us feel at home, make sure all the shows just went on flawlessly.
But it was really nice to be there, and the promoter, Anthony, picked us up, and so it was great to meet him.
Got off the plane, and, traditionally it kind of looks like any other country. You expect it to be super crazy, but, we weren't out in the wild or anything. It's a normal city. But it was cool. We got there on the first day, and Anthony picked us up, and we checked into our hotel, which was pretty cool. It was cool to see some like rare birds and like big lizards and stuff outside. And
upon arriving in Australia, I remember going through customs pretty quickly and easily. Upon stepping out of the airport, we were greeted by the promoter, Anthony, from Your Mate Bookings, and he took us to our first hotel. And it seemed all pretty normal. They drive on the wrong side of the road there, but not the first time I've seen that. It's not like there were just kangaroos and koala bears everywhere, though we did see those things eventually. But we flew into Brisbane, and we explored Brisbane on the first day we had there because there was no show that day. And it was a pretty normal city. I was looking for record stores and cool stuff, and at least the part we were in, it didn't seem like there was that much going on. But we found this cool, like, barcade kind of thing, and that was by far the coolest place around where we were.
We had a day off. This was the day before the first show, so he ended up taking us to like a barcade. It's like a bar and grill with an old school arcade, and they had like amazing games, and we stayed there most of the day actually, which is kind of cool. It's just like we love those retro vintage things that bring our childhood back. It just felt really good. It felt really comfortable there. We had a pretty good time there.
The place called Netherworld. Anthony took us there. So it's like an arcade and a bar. And they had mostly vegan food. It was really good. Really cool people. Cool sort of artwork on the wall by like local artists, very punk rock.
But yeah, it's for the most part, I was just kind of wanting to get some rest, and I don't really get jet lagged too much anymore these days. I'm used to being on a freaky schedule, but I do get a bit tired, so I wanted to do that. I think Rob and Tim and Armand stayed out. I think Anthony was with them too, and maybe he wasn't. And they stayed out, and I think did a little bit of partying and checking out the scene.
It was a really kind of punk kind of sort of place, punk rock, metal sort of place. They had a lot of interesting drinks, a lot of interesting beers, and we just started having some food and beers. And funny enough, there were two guys that showed up that actually came out from New Zealand, going back to, what kind of response we had. These guys literally came out to see the bands. They were fans of both Night Demon and Cirith Ungol, and they had come all the way from New Zealand to come to these shows. And we happened to run into them there and had a good chat with them, and just like, it was like a real good feeling. Like, it was a really nice welcome, because we had literally just been in the country for a few hours, and first we could just go to a random place. It's not like a one-horse town. There's tons of places we could have gone, but the one place we ended up going to, so did these guys. So yeah, that was pretty cool. Run into those gents and just talking about the show and everything, and we signed some stuff, took some pictures. I think we just took some pictures with them and continued on with our nights. So we were at this place for a few hours, and fuck, man, before you knew it, it felt like it was, 11 o'clock at night, but it was only 7. So we decided to head back to our apartments, although I felt like the night was just beginning. So I kind of dragged Rob and Tim with me, and we visited a fine establishment. By the way, this area that we walked through, there was a lot of nightclub sort of establishments, sex shops, clubs, all of that good stuff. So it was interesting. Nothing was open when we first went down there, but as we left the bar, we noticed things were opening up. So we decided to head into one of these places, and ended up we were the only guys in there because they had literally just opened the doors. So, which was cool, because then we got the full treatment, and, everybody was really cool and talking to us, and, oh, you Americans, what the hell are you doing here? Blah, blah, blah. Shots and drinks and beers, and then 11 o'clock at night came around, and we were just like, all right, we're done, man. I'm done. And as I noticed, they're actually starting to get busier, the normal time when people go out. But we had enough for the night.
But all was well, and we had a nice hotel with a cool balcony, and just felt really good, and we really felt like we were taken care of by him. So that felt really nice.
Well, that's it for this episode, as Night Demon prepares to play their first ever show in Australia. Next week, we'll jump in with the first show in Brisbane with live audio from Cirith Ungol and Night Demon. And as always, you can find live audio from the shows, show posters, tons more bonus content in the subscriber section on nightdemon.net. Check out the website on how you can become a subscriber and gain access to the vault. Until next time, this is Nesbitt signing off.
Which on has been good for the killing of the dead. As we take the first look below, the angels began to mourn. Your first mistake was even being born. You must face the Dawn Rider, try to survive the war. You with eyes of blackness, the look of handsome death. The earth grows cold as you take your last breath. You feel the wrath, Dawn Rider. Can you survive the horror? Dawn Rider, fulfilling the prophecy, yeah, for the killing of the dead.
Thanks for listening to the Night Demon Heavy Metal Podcast. Head over to nightdemon.net, click on the subscriber tab, and sign up to access exclusive weekly bonus content. If you would like to donate to support the Night Demon Heavy Metal Podcast, you can do so through PayPal at paypal.me/nightdemonmetal. Additionally, if you have not already done so, please subscribe, like, rate, and review the show on iTunes or wherever you listen to podcasts.
All hail, Night Demon Heavy Metal Podcast listeners. This is Dusty Squires chiming in to tell you about my brand new signature sticks from the London Drumstick Company. I've dreamt of having my very own drumsticks ever since I was a wee lad, and LDC made that a possibility for me. Founded in 2016 in London, England, the birthplace of heavy metal, the London Drumstick Company has trailblazed a path through the music industry and taken the drummer world by storm. When I met them for the first time, they knew their product was going to withstand the beatings of a Night Demon show. They took the time to work with me on getting everything just right. The balance and weight of my sticks are the same no matter what, and the durability is bar none the best I've ever had. I know my sticks will last through the set night after night. I'm truly honored to work with a company that caters to their players the way LDC does. Their innovation and attention to detail is what separates them from the rest of the stick makers out there. Their custom stick sleeves are unbelievable and really make the entire presentation complete. Wait until you see the design they came up with for me. It blew my mind and was a surprise to say the least. They have all kinds of amazing swag, including hoodies, t-shirts, drummer shorts, drum keys, stick bags, towels, face masks, practice pads, and much, much more. Even if you're not a drummer, you can be a part of Demon history and order my brand new signature sticks direct from their website. How cool is that? And to top it off, the London Drumstick Company are giving an exclusive offer to the Night Demon Heavy Metal Podcast listeners. Go to londondrumsticks.co.uk and receive a 15% store-wide discount using promo code DEMONSTICKS. All capital letters, no spaces, Demon Sticks. DEMONSTICKS. I can't thank everyone there enough for the opportunity to be a part of their family and for them trusting me with their amazing products. See you metal maniacs on the road very soon. And yes, the wood chips will be flying.
Greetings, boils and ghouls. This is your comrade, the Crypt Keeper here, reporting dead from the sanctuary of the strange. Tonight's macabre myth is a fright-filled feature, one overflowing with monsters, madness, and magic.
Visit our website at monstersmadnessandmagic.com to stay up to date on all the dark dealings within the sanctuary of the strange. Enjoy the show.
Hey Metalheads, I'm Mark and I host the Metal Forge. Let me tell you about the show. The Metal Forge features the best underground metal from all over the world. We spend every week with a different artist with interviews, in-depth conversations, and most of all, the music. We also feature audience interactivity where you can submit your questions to the upcoming guests. New episodes are out every Friday at noon Eastern Time at metalforgeradio.com or wherever you listen to your podcasts.
Want to know what's going on in the world of music? Then tune in to the Nothing Shocking Podcast, a non-genre based, all-ages friendly rock and roll program. Join us weekly for interviews with all your favorite rock stars from the mainstream to the underground. You can find us at nothingshocking.libsyn.com or anywhere you download podcasts.
Okay, metalheads, you've been complaining that there has not been a channel that plays all of the heavy metal videos from past, present, and future for years and years at this point. Well, that time is over. Heavy Metal Television is back. HeavyMetalTelevision.net is the website. Go there. You can see videos playing 24/7, 365, all the time. All the best from the old school, the new school, and everything in between. Check it out, HeavyMetalTelevision.net. It is where the metal is.